Bionic Spawn is a third-person action shooter that evolved from our original concept that was a 2.5D side-scrolling shooter. As we started to develop our game from mere concept to reality, it became clear that the vision that we had would require giving the player more freedom of movement than the side-scrolling idea could afford. We started with the concept of a failed test subject that returned to the place of their origin to seek revenge on those responsible for their existence. From there, we morphed each iteration into its final form. A game that is fast-paced, but requires the player to strategize their moves on the fly for maximum effect. Had we stayed with our original idea, we were concerned that the player would not be able to fully experience the mission that the main character was about to embark upon. Due to our decision to expand the player's movement dimensions, we were able to implement several bionic abilities that the player can use throughout their journey. For example, the grappling hook allows the player to reach areas too high to jump to, and was one of the more challenging mechanics that I enjoyed working on.
The player is capable of doing basic movements, but sprinting uses up their stamina. However, the main gameplay for Bionic Spawn consists of not only ranged combat, utilizing 3 weapons, the AR with the grenade launcher attachment, the phase pistol which can shoot through objects, and the average but powerfully reliable shotgun, but also the player's 4 abilities which consist of dash, grapple hook, double jump, and phase. Did I mention that you can upgrade each ability to slightly alter the gameplay itself? Along the way, the player will be required to deal with moderate platforming elements like finding ways up and around obstacles, to things like floating phase platforms that disappear. Speaking of obstacles, enemies aren't the only things to be concerned about, as spike traps, turrets, and toxic pools will oppose them as well. Fear not, as players can find extra lives scattered throughout the world, and they are even equipped with a minimap and waypoints to guide them, although there will be both environmental puzzles with using objects that can be destroyed, and hacking puzzles that require a bit more thought, all placed about in the game to keep the player on their toes. What I learned, especially while planning and designing levels, is that good team coordination is key, especially as the weeks diminish. Most of all though, if you want to learn a lot, then chase those big ideas, as there is a great deal of knowledge that can be gathered. But if you want to improve a lot, build off of your small ideas and make them big.
Throughout the development of Bionic Spawn, we had many things that worked well. The beginning of the game starts with an extremely well-crafted tutorial that takes the player through all the mechanics of the game, allowing for the player to get their feet wet before jumping into more difficult levels of the game. Our cityscapes that we used throughout our levels were also a big success in my opinion. The buildings were finely crafted to give the illusion of being able to look into detailed rooms, when in fact the buildings are one giant hollow object. This allowed for us to place these throughout all of the levels without worrying about it affecting game performance while increasing player immersion. Another aspect of our game that worked well was the way Level 1 flows into Level 2. Level 1 starts with the player crash-landed in the middle of a city. The player must then continue the path through the city on foot towards Bionic Inc. headquarters at the end of the level. Level 2 then starts inside the entrance of Bionic Inc., where the player must then work their way to the top floor.
During the development of Bionic Spawn, we ran into many issues that caused us to adapt our implementation of features and enemy types. We had abilities prototyped like a gravity disruptor that would allow objects to be flung around the game world, but it never interacted with the enemies as we had intended. This caused it to be cut early in the development cycle. We also seemed to struggle the most with optimization of our build. For a while, the build would not run over 10 or 15 frames per second. After attempting every technique we could find, we ended up breaking the level into as many small sections as we could to improve stability and give the illusion of the semi-open world we had created. This has taught our team the importance of building with performance in mind from the start rather than trying to implement optimization later.
Bionic Spawn showcases many cool features ranging from our weapons to our boss battles. In the beginning, we started out with an assault rifle, a pistol, and a rocket launcher, but in the end, we implemented them differently. The assault rifle now has a grenade launcher functionality, the pistol can shoot through certain walls, and we added in a shotgun since the rocket launcher was no longer needed. We also have a variety of different enemies for the player to face off against, each having different reactions and levels of difficulty. Lastly, our boss battle setup ranges differently, in the shield boss being the easiest, the flying boss acting as the medium level boss, and lastly the phase boss. The phase boss setup really engages the player to use everything centered around the phase ability, and the setup truly showcases the different enemies and the use of the ability.